Thanks for the chat, JJ. Appreciate that. We're now joined by Kennington Smith III. Des Moines Register covers Iowa. Perhaps the best game has got game day, number 9 and number 10, depending on what poll you look at. Two rivals. Kennington Smith III joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. How about this, Kennington? They both get inside the top 10. Game day and Ames. This is already a rivalry. Iowa looked fantastic the opening week. Your thoughts about the week itself with just the emotions and atmosphere?
This is a crazy week. And just to preface this is my first year covering the Hawkeyes. So today I learned that this is the first ever matchup between both schools where they're both ranked, and now they just happen to be in the top 10. So this is undoubtedly the biggest game in the rivalry's history. And there's just so much at stake. On Iowa State side, you have, the kind of, I guess, little brother in the rivalry who hasn't had as much success as Iowa, and they have an opportunity on a national stage to step into the forefront and truly establish themselves as a new college power and a true playoff contender. Then on Iowa's side, you have, you're at number 10 and you have an opportunity to start off the year with wins over two ranked opponents. And at that point, you're immediately putting yourself into the college football playoff discussion when you look at how the rest of their schedule shakes out. So there's just so much on the line. We had player availability today. And, you can just kind of, feel the energy and the excitement from the players and the coaches, especially because they weren't able to play this game last year due to COVID.
Where did that offense come from Iowa this week? That's not – look, Kirk Ferentz is fine. Like, he thinks a huge put out is 21 points, but that was unbelievable. Where did that come from?
Well, last year, Iowa's offense definitely struggled, but, it really wasn't as black and white as, looking at it from the outside. They had a first-year quarterback who was quarantined throughout the summer due to contact tracing. They weren't able to have a true, spring practice. They weren't able to have a true fall camp. You go into a season where you have to play a straight-off Big Ten slate, and you don't have maybe a FCS opponent or a lower, D2 opponent to kind of prepare yourself and to kind of like work the kinks out. So they just started off full on. And one of those games was against Northwestern, who has one of the best secondaries in the country. They have a first round pick last year. They're going to have a top pick this year. So, there were some kinks to work out, but this year, full winter, full spring, full summer, full fall. And you can feel going into the game just a different confidence among the players, and that, they felt like quarterback Spencer Petras has progressed. They felt like there was better chemistry. Obviously, you have one of the best offensive linemen in the country in Tyler Linderbaum at the center of the offensive line, getting that group together. And, they did exactly what they were supposed to do. They popped out with a big run by running back Tyler Goodson to start off the game. And then from there, you could just kind of feel in the stadium and feel in the atmosphere what type of game that was about to be. And they rolled that momentum to a big win.
So how did the Hawkeyes manage to escape out of week one as far as health and just having everything ducks in a row ahead of this game? I know that wide receiver Charlie Jones got banged up, but what are the status of the Hawkeyes after getting this first game under their belts?
Yeah, well, today, Ferentz said that everybody who isn't long-term injured, which is somebody like Kyler Schott, for example, starting offensive lineman, they knew going into the season he would miss 3 or 4 weeks. But Charlie Jones was a full-going practice today. Tyler Linderbaum was a full-going practice today. So, no players who didn't already know going into the season were going to miss some time, practice today, and the Hawkeyes are going to be a full-go on Saturday.
Yeah, and I tell you what, this is great to have. We just saw a weekend, Kennington, as you know, with like 5 or 7 games that just seem like, man, what a way for college football to come back. And now this one here, Iowa State, they kind of struggled. Well, they did. They struggled against Northern Iowa, who's given them problems before. What do you see with what they do with Breece Hall, the running back, obviously the quarterback who's been great, Purdy? Your thoughts about what they do against Iowa?
It's going to be an interesting matchup when you consider Iowa. Their base defense is a 4-2-5. Iowa State, obviously, they use a lot of 2 tight end sets. They're gonna run the ball with Breece Hall and Brock Purdy, and they're gonna do some different things on offense. So it's gonna kind of take Iowa a little bit out of their base defense. We're gonna see probably more of a 3-4 look against them, which is gonna present some challenges. Kirk Ferentz today was very complimentary of Breece Hall, 1,600-yard rusher. We kind of know what he's about in terms of, the Walker Award, Maxwell, potential Heisman candidate Brock Purdy, one of the all-time leading passers. He's capable with his legs as well. So, containing Breece Hall, I think, is going to be the number one priority of Iowa's defense, and slowing down that running game. But, what Iowa State does schematically is going to take Iowa a little bit out of their game. So it's going to be interesting to see how they manage, more going to a 4-3 look than their base look this week.
Kennington, Kirk Ferentz has been there a long time and hasn't changed a lot. In your, I know you've only been there a brief time. What do you think has been his true staying power? Why has he been able to keep that job as long as he has? I
think that just in general, Iowa is one of those schools that is just very big on continuity. When you look even at their basketball program, Coach Trent McCaffrey has been there for a long time. Before Kirk Ferentz, they had Hayden Fry, who had coached, for a few decades, and then they, reach back into his coaching tree and bring on Ferentz, who has also coached, we're going on, I believe this is his 23rd season. So I just think, overall, it's just a university that, truly believes in continuity and not a lot of changeover. And if you are going to change over, kind of keep it within the family. So I think that it's a combination of that. And if you're going to go on the same logic of, we're going to reach back into the program, I don't want to talk out of turn here because I'm not an expert, but I don't know if they have maybe pinpointed the right successor for Ferentz yet. So that will probably be my reasoning on why he's been able to stay for so long.
It appears, Kennington, that the Big 12 now has this, at least it looks like a plan, with 4 new teams joining the conference. As you know, when all this first went down with Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC, that, my goodness, there were rumors speculated everywhere. Do you really ever think that Iowa State was ever a goal or was ever on the radar of the Big Ten?
I think that maybe in the beginning it was something to consider. I just think that when you're looking at conference, expansion, certain things that you're going to want to look for is like TV markets, for example. But, Iowa and Iowa State being in the same state, you already kind of have that in Iowa, with that TV market. So I think that, there, are some, preliminary interest, but we talked to athletic director Gary Barta last week, and he said, as the Big Ten, when this happened, we sat down, we looked at, all the potential factors and all the potential teams, and we didn't feel comfortable moving forward with anybody. And when we talked to the Pac-12 and the ACC, they kind of felt the same way. So to me, that kind of signifies that, maybe Iowa State was of interest, maybe Kansas was of interest, and other schools. But in the end, weighing in all of the factors, it just wasn't, so attractive of a situation to where they wanted to, move forward with it other than, just giving it a quick thought.
What I like about the first weekend, the Big Ten, they had teams that matter, that played each other right off the top. Even the Minnesota-Ohio State game, you had Penn State, Wisconsin. You had the game you mentioned, that you covered, Kennington, between Iowa as well.
Well, get ready with the Alliance. That's what all those games are going to be like. It's just going to be Big Ten versus Pac-12, Pac-12 versus ACC, and so on and so forth. There's the boost of the Alliance.
Well, that's
go ahead.
And I was saying, that's that as a fan and as media members, that's what we want. We want competitive games every week. We want top teams to play against each other. We want teams to go out and be aggressive in their scheduling and not be afraid to lose because they think it's going to be such a knock when it comes to playoff seeding and New Year's Six Bowl selection. So I think that, the Alliance is a good thing for college, football in response to what happened in the SEC, because I think that's just those schools' way of trying to protect themselves and still play a competitive enough schedule to when it, compares to what teams in the SEC are going to have to go up against, that they're going to have some sort of say in terms of strength of schedule, seeding, big bowl selections and things like that.
Yeah, it's good to see some game. You got a little separation. Were you surprised Indiana was so inept?
It was, it was just one of those games. Well, to answer, yes, I was surprised that it went like that, but it was just one of those games where it was just over so quickly. Like Goodson breaks off that long touchdown run, and then it's like, okay, Indiana has this high-powered offense. They could be able to strike back, and then immediately Penix throws that pick six, and 3 minutes in, it's 14-0, and it's the first time, you have a sellout crowd again, and the crowd is rocking. And at that point, you could just kind of look around and say, okay, like, we know that this one is over. So, I just think that they got, shell-shocked super early, and they just weren't able to recover from that. But if you'd have told me before the game that Penix wasn't going to throw a touchdown pass, he was going to throw, 3 interceptions and, You know, the offense wasn't, going to score it all. And I probably would have called you crazy, but, that's just a testament to, Iowa's, defense. They did what they were supposed to do, not taking anything away from them. But Indiana showing on offense was surprising for sure.
Kennington, you said this your first year on the Iowa beat?
Yes.
All right. Well, I remember when I first got on the Baylor beat, so to speak, and I remember a massive game between Baylor and Oklahoma that was super hyped up, and everybody here was going crazy. So, man, enjoy this moment this weekend because, obviously the most hype this game's ever had, Cy-Hawk Trophy, all that stuff. Definitely enjoy it, man.
Absolutely. It's going to be an incredible experience. Leading up to this, game, and even in my interview process, my editors, co-writers, colleagues were telling me how big the Cy-Hawk game is. So this week is going to be a bit of a baptism by fire for me, especially covering the game live in Ames. But I'm looking forward to it. And, again, like how often does the center of the college football world, happen to land in Iowa? So, I'm going to, live it up, and I'm hoping for a great game on both sides.
Be careful not to hang around the tailgating for too long because you'll forget there's a game going on because it's an incredible atmosphere. You're going to love it. Great people. Good luck, Kennington. Thanks for your time today.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. And, if you and your viewers, your listeners didn't hate me on the listen, then we should do this again sometime.
No,
you're doing it. Absolutely.
Kennington Smith, the third, Des Moines Register, covers Iowa and Iowa State. We'll get you again, man, and hopefully that means because Iowa's doing pretty well. And, of course, we have a friend, Adam Batchelor, huge Iowa State fan. He's a little bit nervous, as you should be. That's that good nervous about a big game.
Well, shoot, man, look at the records. You'd be nervous playing Iowa. I don't care what you're ranked if you're Iowa State. They've owned this thing, man.
They've won 5 in a row, 6 of 7, 12 of 17, and 45 of 67 over the span of the long history of the series.
But let's not forget, Iowa State lost this game last year, and they ended up okay. They lost their first game, and then they turn around and get beat by Iowa, and they still end up in the Big 12 championship game. So that's like I'm kind of struggling with my Big 12 power rankings because it's like some people go off of just the one game they've seen, and I kind of go off of what I expect, but also what we've seen. So, in some of these blowout games, it's kind of hard to say who's above who or whatever. Like, how high should I put TCU because they whooped Duquesne by 50? You know what I mean? Like, that was a great win in terms of a blowout, but it didn't really show us show us a whole lot about what to expect with TCU versus superior teams. So if you're Iowa State, you're going to have if you're Iowa, Indiana and Iowa State back-to-back games, you're going to know all about your team. Right out of the chutes. I love that.
Dennis, I think it may be Hattie or Haiti, Haty. You were asking about my figures when it comes to the